Bar for Bar album reviews. Brockhampton, Roadrunner, New Light, New Machine. Roadrunner, New Light, New Machine is the latest album from everyone's favorite boy band, Brockhampton, and marks a shift to a new, more mature era for them. Although how long this era will truly last is to be seen, as this is supposedly the group's second to last album, with the final one dropping later in 2021. However, do keep in mind we have heard this before with the Saturation trilogy as well. The album starts off really strong with the lead single Buzzcut, featuring Danny Brown. I've done a full breakdown for this track already, so if you want a more in-depth look at it, go check that out. This song has both Kevin and Danny Brown bringing in solid, high-energy verses for the first half of the song, and then the song ends with a more instrumental and melodic outro from Joba and Merlin. When given the song as an intro, you might think we're getting an album full of bangers, but just you wait, because with the second track, Chain On, things slow down just a little bit. Chain On introduces the group's second rap feature, JPEG Mafia, on a beat that's almost reminiscent of his own production on Danny Brown's album for the track 3 Tiers. Both verses from Peggy and Dom go a bit into police violence and brings this, sense of trying to build unity. I really did enjoy Dom's verse, but at first I almost thought that there were 2 Peggy verses because their voices and delivery, were just similar enough. The group continues to shift sounds a little bit with Count on Me, which features A$AP Rocky, Shawn Mendes, and So Gone So Flexy. I know when the song originally came out, people weren't really feeling it, but I liked it then, and I like it even more now with the album. The flow thus far has been solid, even though each song sounds pretty different from the last. This track in particular is a little bit more poppy than the other tracks that we've heard so far, but I think it works. As far as content, it's pretty straightforward, and it's just about letting others know that they can count on you no matter what. The sounds shift yet again with Bankroll, featuring A$AP Rocky and A$AP Ferg. This song was teased for a long time. I think back in 2018 was the first time we heard a snippet of this, but since then we had only really heard Rocky and Merlin on it. So Ferg's inclusion was a nice surprise. I suppose given the features here, the song could be underwhelming to some, especially after it had been teased for some time. But for someone like me who tends to ignore leaks and teasers, I thought it was fine. I also don't normally expect much from A$AP Mob in general lyrically, so to me it's more of a vibe/flow sort of thing with them. And that's something that they did really well on this track. This might not be a song I return to too often outside of the album, but it's still fun to listen to on occasion. Following Bankroll, we get one of the more intense songs on the album, The Light. The track only has Joba and Kevin on it, but that's for a good reason. This track, as well as the follow-up at the end of the album, has Joba giving us a vivid description of his father's suicide and his feelings surrounding it. It's definitely an intense but beautiful listen, and honestly, I feel like if it was just Joba on it, I might have liked it a little bit better. Kevin's verse is still good, but following what Joba had said is tough. Kevin's verse focuses in more on his relationship with his family and growing up in Texas, which is emotional in its own right as well. This track to me is really where the album starts to shift tones, and I feel like everything that we get after this is kind of experimental, although it sounds that they've all done before. With the next track, Windows, we get a feature from So Gone So Flexy again, and everyone in the group is involved. It's also the longest track on the album, which I guess makes sense when you have so many people here. It's basically a crew cut. I really like the beat and the verse that we got from So Gone So Flexy, but everyone else also brings in a really solid contribution as well. It really is just a crew cut, like I said, where everyone's just rapping their asses off, especially just Joba. His verse alongside So Gone So Flexy just stick out so much to me. Things keep being shaken up with the track I'll Take You On featuring Charlie Wilson. This song is super poppy and fun, but not something that I personally can get into. I see its appeal, but it's not for me. Really, my favorite part of the track is the ending with Kevin and Charlie Wilson, but to be fair, Brockhampton tends to have some of the more solid outros to songs that I've heard. It also leads to one of the better transitions to the next song, Old News. Old News features Baird with Jabari on the chorus, where he does a really solid job. This track is quite a bit less poppy, I feel, and leans more into, I guess, an R&B sort of vibe, if anything. I don't really have much to say about this track specifically, though, other than I enjoyed it. Everything's pretty straightforward in terms of the lyrics and the message. And this also flows really well into the next track, What's the Occasion? What's the Occasion has a very similar feeling to Old News in my opinion, but that's not a bad thing. The biggest change here is that we just skip Joba on the chorus instead. But we also, I feel like we get a more melancholy feel, especially with the chorus. And then we get to another shift in sound with When I Ball. This is different because it has a more upbeat instrumental. The track itself has Dom and Matt reminiscing on their childhoods and what they wanted to do. Dom's verse is more focused on his family, like parts of his family going to jail when he was young and how he obviously didn't want that to happen to him. And Matt's verse it also touches on family, but more about the relationship that he has with them. As the album begins to wrap up, we get one more banger with Don't Shoot Up the Party. This is one of those songs that brings in some real shit while keeping it high energy, and I'm all for it. The track touches on a lot of things, really, ranging from homophobia to gun violence. Kevin starts off the track, and it's dope because it's right before the beat fully comes in, so it's almost like he's building the beat up himself. This leads to the penultimate track, Dear Lord, which just has a solo verse from Bareface, but still includes other members to kind of form a choir. I don't really care for this song because I'm not really a big fan of gospel music, but again, I see its appeal. It's basically a letter written to God where Bareface's verse is more of a prayer, seemingly in support of Joba, which then leads into the final track on the album, The Light Part 2. Part 2 carries on the same themes and thoughts as The Light, but may hit a little harder because of the chorus where Joba's pleading with his father, telling him that the light is worth the wait. It's a tough listen for most people, I'd imagine, including myself, to the point where when I listen to this album, I have to skip both of those tracks. They're hard to listen to, but they're both beautiful songs, and I feel like they're very important to both Kevin and especially Joba. Overall, this album was solid. It's obviously not going to be anything like they've done before because they tend to switch things up a little bit with every project. I don't really know how often I'll be returning to this project though, because even though I was excited to hear it initially, I kind of forced myself to go back to listen to it for this review. I personally will be going back to individual songs, but that's been my experience with most of their discography so far. There's songs that I really like, but also a lot of songs that I just don't really care for. A lot of the time, it does have to do with sequencing and jarring changes in sounds with albums. And with this album, there was a bit of progression and overall theming as you listen to it. But to me, it still feels like their sound, could be further refined and focused. That's just me though. I know there's plenty of people out there that really enjoy this album from front to back, and that's great. My favorite tracks are Buzzcut, Chain On, Count on Me, Old News, Don't Shoot Up the Party, as well as The Light Part 1 and 2, although I don't know how frequently I'll be going back to those two as much. They're just really good songs though, and definitely deserve at least one listen. I know I started to sound a little bit negative towards the end of this review here, and it may have sounded like I didn't really like it, but to me it was about on par for a Brockhampton album, to me at least. There are songs I really like and songs that I just don't really care for, just like the rest of their discography. I am looking forward to what's coming next from them, though, since it is supposed to be their last album. I assume they'd want to put out their best work for their last project, but we'll have to wait and see. But also, in the music industry, does anyone ever officially retire? We'll see. That's all I got for this review. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of this album, and what do you think they're going to do for their next project? Also remember to like and subscribe if you want to see more reviews and content like this. Thank you for watching, and please stay safe out there.